Hello great people. So today we talk about the major differences between the Kenyan and the Nigerian elections. So the third, the fifth, the sixth and the seventh ones will really shock you. So you better watch each and every one of them so that you not only get shocked but also get a little bit entertained. So welcome to another episode of Kenya Nigeria. I am Pauline Nisi, bringing it to you live from Nigeria. Is actually on election timing when it comes to cycles. So in Kenya we have a 5-year cycle for every election, and in Nigeria we have a 4-year cycle. So the other interesting thing is that in Kenya we do elections from the president to the MCA same period of time. So when you talk about a general election, that period actually caters for everybody. When you go to vote, you're voting from president up to MCA. In Nigeria, however, it's divided into two. So there's the presidential election, for instance, which is happening on the 25th of February 2023, and then on the 11th of March we have the governor's election and also the House of Representatives election. A whole other difference. So you see, so 5 years for Kenya and 4 years for Nigeria. And then in Kenya we do the elections all the way from presidential election to the MCA on the same day, at the same time. When you go to the polling station, you vote from your president to the MCA. In Nigeria, they have separate days. So on one day, they only vote the president, which comes on, I think like there's a period of 2 weeks, and the other one, they vote for the rest. So great people, there's something that really shocked me about Nigerian elections, and I'll tell it to you in a bit. Nigerians don't let their win just go to waste. So let me give you a little bit background. So in Kenya, you remember there's a 5-year cycle, right? So let's say governor, there's different people trying to get into a particular, let's say governor seat, right? So they go in there, and you know the usual, you know, they say in Africa nobody concedes defeat easily, right? So they somebody goes in there and says, oh, you know, the election was stolen, I deserve to be the winner and all that. So what happens? The person who is actually announced the winner takes over the position and continues discharging their duties, for example, of governor. So, and then they go to court, right? Everyone is free to go to court. So they go to court, and if they don't feel that it's fair, they take it on to the next level of court. So last when when, for example, the governor A, the one who is actually on the seat, is determined to have stolen the elections, and then governor, the person now who is supposed to have won, gets in, takes on from there. So maybe this person was there for 3 years, this other person takes on from year 3 to year 5. In Nigeria, that doesn't happen. They don't let it go like that. So for example, somebody was declared the winner, they took over and they were sworn in and continued discharging their duties. So say in the second year, they go to court, and then it's determined that this person actually did not win fair and square, and the other person is actually, let's say the plaintiff won, right? Guess what happens? The Nigerian one starts on that day, their years start there. So you see, this person has already done 2 years, right? So the other one starts counting their year 1 from them. So what happens is that in Kenya we have very clear cycles, very clear lines. So every 5 years, whether it was unfair or unfair that the person who was declared winner was not winner, when the real winner gets in, they have those 2 years to actually prove that they won, and then maybe they can seek re-election for the next time. In Nigeria, the day the court decides that the person is actually the real winner, the one that did not win, they start their term at that time. So you find that every other year there's a governor's or there's a governor's election or whatever seat that was lost, right? So it's not very neat. So we find that INEC is always working. So let's say 2 years ago we had Ekiti State elections. The year before that there was Ondo elections. No, while in Kenya we know there's 5-year cycles. So if we had elections in 2008, the next elections will be add 5 years, you know, and then the next election. So our last elections was in 2018. So the next the elections were in 2023, and the next elections will be 2027. In Nigeria, if at this point in time somebody is declared winner and somebody contests, in the next 2 years, if it's decided otherwise, the person who is supposed to have won starts their years in 2025. So you get the idea. So that's a really big difference. Then the other issue is on voter registration. So in Kenya, generally we have high turnout in terms of voter registration compared to Nigeria. There are very many factors that come into play that I won't get into, but generally in Kenya we actually see that more people register to vote and actually more people participate in the voting process. Having been here and having spoken to a number of people, I've actually seen people say here that it doesn't matter who I vote for, at the end of the day they already know who will win. But I feel like at this point in time, it's every citizen's duty to actually vote. Whether they steal your vote or not, that's not your problem. Your thing is that you need to exercise your civic duty and actually vote. Whatever the outcome is, just have peace knowing that you did your bit. Now, for example, imagine, I always give this example, that imagine that your candidate lost by, say, 3 votes. Do you know how that would make you feel if you felt that maybe your 1 vote would have made a difference? So for me, I feel like Nigerians always say that at the end of the day, my vote doesn't count. Your vote actually counts. Even if the person does not win, but the margin is actually big enough, it might inspire hope for the next election for someone else to feel that maybe if we vote more, if actually we got 20%, if a block of us voted, we can increase the vote percentage to 30%, to 40%, to 50%. So please, I urge Nigerians, please just go out and vote. For as long as you have your PVC, please go out and vote. Your vote actually does count. Even if the person doesn't win, it actually just fosters more confidence when you actually see the numbers. Yes, please go and vote. So the other thing about voter registration is that in Kenya we usually have a particular window of voter registration. So it's announced that there will be voter registration exercises from, say, this month to this month or this period of time. The thing with Nigeria, maybe because the country is so large and there are so many of them, the voter registration is actually a continuous process, which I really like, because I mean, these people, the electoral bodies, INEC, you know, at the IBC, they are being paid, so they should be working, you know, they should be working full-time, because I feel like that's also another way of just ensuring that people are not feeling time bad. What if, for say, they give 1 year for people to go and register as voters, and maybe somebody is unwell or they've traveled? For example, you're working in a different state and maybe you want to vote in a different state. For example, you want to vote in Lagos State and you've been posted in Kaduna and you cannot get time off work. It's very difficult for you to actually travel from, say, Kaduna to Lagos in a very short period just to do voter registration. It's actually impractical. So I like that Nigeria actually leaves that open as compared to Kenya, who actually has a window open. But I still wonder why, as much as it's open, people still don't register, or if they register, they actually don't go and collect their PVCs. For example, right now it's such a pity that there are so many PVCs I mean, people have not collected them. And if they've not collected them up to now, that means they're not going to vote. And that's really, really sad. What's the point of you going to actually register, take your time and register, and then you don't go and collect the PVC? Although I hear that there are some places that it was actually being very difficult for people to be able to collect their PVCs. I don't know about that, but there has been such cases apparently. But also, that also tells us, let's not wait until the last minute to actually do our registration, because then if you go to collect and you're told that it's not ready, it's actually frustrating, because nobody has the time to keep going 2 times, 3 times, and maybe you have to take time off work and maybe travel and do all those things. So as much as there's that difference in terms of the window period, I feel like it may work as an advantage, because it actually gives people a very tight period, so that makes people actually, you know, rush and do it. Maybe Nigerians always feel, it's open, I can go anytime. So whatever it is, it's still a matter of discipline, both on the part of the voter and also on the election, the body that is responsible for elections, to actually make sure that voters are served well and are able to get their PVC in good time, and also to, so that they can be able to vote and have confidence in the electoral process. Apparently, as much as Kenyans, we are not as many as Nigerians, the voter turnout in Kenya is actually higher than Nigeria. So I was looking at some numbers and I was actually really surprised. I thought that, but also in percentages, that as much as there are more, that means then more people should actually vote, and especially knowing what is at stake, right? But actually, congratulations, Kenyans, you actually go out to vote more than Nigerians. But I also feel like, because we feel that to some extent that our system works. To a great extent, I feel like Kenyans over time have had more confidence in their system, you know. So as much as we still have that thing of even if I don't vote, or if I vote it doesn't make a difference, but I feel like also we have better voter education. There's more civic education. There's also a huge number of youth that are actually involved in the process, not only as voters but also as aspirants, you know. I mean, Kenya, we have 23-year-olds, you know, getting seats like MCAs. We have there's a time we had actually, I think, was it a member of parliament, right? So I think that has actually inspired hope and confidence among the youth in regards to just being general participants, whether it's in the mobilization process, whether it's in civic education, whether as aspirants and also as voters. I really hope that actually Nigeria will get to that point, but there's no way that they'll get to that point without just doing the work. You know, I keep saying that in Kenya we've actually been through a journey. It may look like we've arrived. No, we still have a long way to go, but we've actually had a journey over time. I keep talking about, like, for example, our current president. Do you actually know that he started off as a student leader? Right, in the 90s, when he was actually a student, right? He started then and he was working on grassroots and he learned the ropes. Our president actually had no chance of ever being president if we were going by whose son he was or who he was in the grand scheme of things. But he actually started from the bottom, right? And where is he now? He started from the bottom and now he's the president, right? So I feel like that's a very inspiring story when it comes in the elections of Kenya, that anybody can have a chance and anybody can be anyone. Think about our deputy president, who till date still says, I am shocked. Am I actually the deputy president? You know, I think that really gives me hope when it comes to Africa in general. And I really pray that other African countries, especially the youth, are looking at Kenya's example and actually gathering hope. So Nigerians, you need to know that it's actually a process. It may not happen in your time, but you actually have to start now so that it gets better in the next 20-30 years. Some of us are enjoying today because of what happened 20-30 years ago, right? We actually are coming, as much as we didn't have military rule, we're actually coming from almost military rule because we had one party. It was a single party country for many years, right? And for us to actually become a multi-party system, and actually for democracy to reign, and for us to get to a place that we are at today, it has been a journey. So Nigerians, if you don't start the journey, nobody will start the journey for you. 50 years from now, it will only get worse for your children. So please, just go and do your own. Go and vote. Whatever the outcome is, just know you did your bit. Next time, scale up your, your efforts. Either give in terms of money, give in terms of your skill, in terms of your resource, and with time, actually, small efforts. And I'm not just giving, this is no motivational talk. I have actually worked myself. I have worked, this time I was in Nigeria, so I did not do much, but I was actually part of some think tanks because I had a lot of friends vying or supporting people who were vying up to presidential on both divides. So I had people who were actually really supporting Raila and people who were actually supporting Ruto. And when it comes to support, I'm non-partisan because I think about issues and I'm objective, not only as a professional but also as a person. So Nigerians, please take this as a chance to just do your civic duty. If you have that PVC, please brave the sun. It's only for one day, I beg you. You know, it will make a difference. Even if at the end of the day you feel the results are not fair, you will feel peace because you'll have done your own. Even the good book says that having done all, stand. So please go and stand in the sun, brave it. It's only for one day, and just know it's a seed that you're planting for future generations. So in the case of say election disputes here, so let's talk about the role of the judiciary, right? So in Kenya, usually as in any elections, not just in Africa, most of the times people don't always concede defeat. It's in very rare cases that you see people actually conceding defeat. Some are even actually really objective to the point of conceding defeat before the results are actually announced. So in the case where people don't concede defeat and feel that maybe it was unfair, maybe the election results were, messed up with, or the election was stolen, so there's actually a process. And what happens that in Kenya is the Supreme Court that actually has the final say when it comes to election results. For example, in the last two elections, in 2018, I remember we went through the process and we actually had the election twice, the presidential election twice. So they felt that former President Uhuru Kenyatta had not won, and then went through the court process, and well, it was said that we have to have a re-election process. Anyway, we did the re-election process and he still won. Whether fairly or not, well, but we went all the way to the Supreme Court. So what happened this time when it came to the case of, well, there were two major aspirants, right? There was President Ruto, who is the sitting president, and then there was Raila, who is the leader of opposition currently. So they felt that the election was not free and fair. So what happened that they went to the courts, they went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the election results were upheld, and they said that Ruto had actually won by the majority. So well, it did still go down well with the opposition, and they still feel, and they say that they do not recognize the presidential results and hence the presidency. But at the end of the day, the rule of law prevails, and the Supreme Court said that, you know, Ruto had won, and they ruled that way in favor of Ruto, and that's President Ruto, and that's why we have him as president. So in the case of Nigeria, the highest court, I think, is the Court of Appeal. So whenever there's an election dispute and people go to court, the Court of Appeal is the one that has the final say, while in Kenya is the Supreme Court that has the final say. So we all know how disruptive that election campaigns can be, and hence people cannot be let to campaign anytime, anywhere for, you know, 5 years, 3 years, that just in readiness for the general election. So what happens is that in Kenya we are given that 90 days before the elections for the election campaigns to start in earnest, so that way people can have road shows, people can, you know, get airtime, you know, people can set up billboards, because can you imagine if they actually let it run for a whole year? Nothing will go on, you know. There'll be so many problems, there will be a lot of disruption in, you know, in just general life, you know, the kind of traffic jam that happens when these elections, you know, the campaigns. It's just very disruptive. Learning is disrupted. So many things are disrupted. So in Kenya, usually we do 90 days before the election period. But also bear in mind, as I said, that in Kenya, general elections are held once every 5 years, and that is across board from presidential up to the MCA level, right? So, and if you remember correctly, we said that in Nigeria, it's a 4-year cycle, and then there's a presidential election that happens first, and then followed by the general elections, right? By general elections, it means everybody else from governor to, you know, the House of Representatives. So in Nigeria, it's 90 days before the general elections that campaigns are allowed to happen, and then 30 days before the presidential election. So I feel like this actually brings a lot of order to the country, because I mean that it's too disruptive, you know. Other than just the infrastructural issues, there's also the issue of people's emotions and people not being able to, you know, concentrate on what they're supposed to, as in the day-to-day. You know, we are all, as much as people feel, oh, I don't care about politics, we are all political people, right? Everybody needs to care about politics, and everyone needs to be involved in one way or the other. Of course, respectful of everybody's wishes and respectful of everybody's differences. But all in all, there's usually a stipulated time period where campaigns happen. When it comes to election violence, I feel like both countries have experienced election violence, either during, before, or post-elections in varied degrees. But of course, the world can never forget the 2007-2008 post-election violence that affected all of us, like all of us. I too was affected, my family was affected. I won't get into it today, maybe one day I will, but all of us were affected in one way or the other. And it was so bad that, I mean, it was going to get really, really bad. I remember that time things were really thick. I can't think about it without getting very emotional, because we lost so many people. We lost thousands and thousands of people. People's livelihoods were messed up. People's homes were messed up. I mean, it was really, really bad. It was really, really bad. The country came to a standstill, and we went all the way to the ICC. I remember at that point in time, former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Ruto were running mates, and they were taken all the way to the ICC. And it was really, really bad, because we've not had many African leaders going to The Hague, and that was a precedent case. Anyway, long and short of it is that they came back and they were able to do their 10 years of service, and now the former vice president is now the president. So when it comes to elections, I feel that we can't really know what would happen, but then again, as we said, it's really up to us, you know. In Nigeria, just the other day, 2 years ago in 2020 in October, I remember 20th October, we had a really bad experience with NSAS. You know, it was not during elections, but it was, hey, man, whenever I think of it, I really get emotional, and I think this is where I should end the video, because it actually was really traumatic for me. This thing happened around the Lekki toll gate. This is a place I pass by the Lekki toll gate every other day for as long as I'm going to VI or I'm still operating within Lekki. I'll use the Lekki toll gate. And I remember we were told, and as much as we live in a very secure area, I could hear the gunshots, you know, I could hear the screaming, and it was so bad. You actually did not have to watch the news, right? But I mean, you could just hear it, and I remember it was so bad, and it just really triggered me in so many ways, because the 2007-2008 post-election violence really messed us. It really messed a lot of us up. And for me, I think last year's election, the way it went in Kenya, it actually really helped me heal. All those other years, all those other elections, I was really triggered, and as much as I was participating in it, I was really scared, right? So when Kenya had peaceful elections last year, it really helped a lot of us just put a lot of things past us, because there's no getting over what happened to us in 2007, 2008. And that's why, for me, I really pray that Nigeria just upholds peace, because especially this is basically whoever you vote in is likely to be there for the next 8 years, right? And I know right now people are saying it's a do or die situation, it's a chance to actually bring in, you know, someone different to change things. But I will say you can change things through your vote, right? You cannot go and fight people, you cannot go and shoot people, you cannot go and kill people, because there's no point of losing more people than we already did even during the NSAS, which was not during the elections. So you just go vote and go back home, drink your gari, you know, eat your food and relax, you know. And then when it comes to the other election, just go and do your best and vote, you know. If you can give in any way, whether it's your time, your skill, your resource, whether you can go and help in observing for your, you know, for your party, that will be great. But please, above everything, just uphold peace. I mean, this is the giant of Africa, and as we said, the giant needs to stand tall and keep strong, not only for Nigeria but for the rest of Africa. So Nigeria, please decide, and decide well. We are here, my in-laws. Nigeria is strong and it will stand. So thank you.